So today was Line's IPO. This is the Japanese messaging app, actually owned by a Korean firm. And I thought today would be a good time to talk about the role these new social networks will play in the larger social network ecosystem. Will they be disruptive to Facebook? Will they cannibalize Facebook's usage? Or can we expect to see the biggest players continue to be dominant in social networking? For those of you who don't know, social networking has a special place in my heart. I built beginning in 1996. We launched in 1997, really the world's first online social network called 6 Degrees. And as part of that, we wrote a patent which defined a social network as the ability to index multiple relationships in a single database and see the people you don't know through the people you do. And what I really wanted to focus on today was the expectation that we had, and I think many people have had over 20 years of online social networks, that massive advantage accrued to the incumbent player. And the reason for that was because the incumbent player was building a true network effect model. So let me define what I mean by network effect, and then I'll share with you my thoughts about who I think will dominate the social networking space in the years to come. So first, the network effect model. A network effect is one, a business with a network effect is one where each incremental user derives exponentially more value than the prior users because the prior users are already part of the system. So for example, if when we started 6 Degrees, we made the claim that you, by joining 6 Degrees, could meet anyone in the world. Through the people you know, you could meet other people, but there were only 2 people in the database. The service was of limited value to you. And in fact, probably that was true for the 3rd person and the 4th person and the 5th person. But at some point you cross a threshold where it actually begins to be true that some nth person joining a system is beginning to derive value because of all of the people that have joined prior to her. Same could have been said for telephones. If you were one of the first 2 people to buy a telephone, not much use. But as millions of people began to use telephones, it was a true network effect. The nth person was deriving exponentially more value than the people prior to him or her joining. So you would expect, similar to a law of gravity, that the law of network effects would govern social networks. And once a company crossed a critical threshold, we wouldn't be seeing reinventions of social networks. We'd be seeing a dominant player, and then we wouldn't be seeing others. The history of social networks, though, has been anything but that. So 6 Degrees, probably the largest social network from 97 to 99, 2000, and then Friendster was the largest social network until MySpace was the largest social network until Facebook. Now, while 6 Degrees measured its members in the millions, Facebook is now measuring its members in the billions. And you would surely expect that entrenched position where a user has absolute certainty when they join that just about everyone they know is going to already be on the network would mean it would be very difficult for new social networks to take hold. And I should say by social networks, I'm referring to any service where the core piece of functionality revolves around some semblance or instance of a contact manager, where you have a list of people that have either validated your relationship to them or you're following them, they're following you. All of these social networks have that central asset as the core to them. Even with Facebook's billion and a half to 2 billion members, what we've actually seen over the past year is a decrease in user engagement. Now, there are different metrics by which you would consider user engagement. I'm not sure whether when people talk about decreasing user engagement, some people are talking about minutes or posts or shares. But in fact, some of Facebook's user engagement metrics are beginning to decline. And the reason for that is they're being cannibalized by new social networks. Exactly the opposite of our law of network effect, our law of social networks. So That's incredibly peculiar. And I wonder whether or not that will continue to be the case. I'd love to hear your thoughts. My own sense now is, after watching this space for 20 years, that what we are going to see is new social networks, whether they're new because of their user experience, because of their UI. It's sometimes the slightest or subtlest of tinkering will continue to emerge and cannibalize existing social networks. The brilliance of Facebook is they've achieved such large size that they've been able to maintain their position over the past several years, not by reinventing Facebook, but by acquiring their competitors, by acquiring WhatsApp, by acquiring Instagram. And what we're seeing is the cannibalization is occurring both through their own properties and through properties like Snapchat and now Line, which is a messaging app operating largely in Japan and a few other countries in the Southeast Asian theater. But what's interesting is this notion that the largest player will not be able to crowd out new entrants. And in fact, my prediction is, over the course of the next 3, 5, 10 years, you will begin seeing people use social networking apps that you've yet to hear of today. And if Facebook is going to continue to be the dominant company, it will not be because Facebook reinvents itself. It will be because they have figured out how to continuously use their currency to acquire the new social networking apps. That's the topic for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to know whether or not you think the incumbent players are the ones that younger people will be using in 3, 5, 10, 20 years, or whether you agree with me that for the history speaks to a reinvention of this space, and we're going to see that now at, I think, the same intervals we've been seeing it, but in order for the big players to stay large, it's going to be through an M&A strategy. Please hit me up in the comments, and I'll be sure to respond. Thanks.